right. Good morning, Hobbyverse. It is Saturday. It's time for another episode of Hobby Hotline, Saturday, December 20th, as we head towards Christmas. And I'm joined today. I haven't been on the show in a bit, so this is see if I can remember what to do. But I'm joined today on the top of the screen, true rookie card specialist, Mr. Victor Roman. Good morning.
Morning, John. Morning, chat.
And below us, only on screen, Dr. James Beckett. As always, glad to see you. And well, listen, big news happened. This show kind of made itself. And full disclosure, Dr. Jim was scheduled, 3-4 weeks in advance, so the timing is more serendipity than planned with this week's recent news. I just want to kind of state that so people understand that. But the timing, quite frankly, couldn't really be better because of what went down this week. I'll put the graphic on the screen. Collectors Universe acquired the company that Dr. Jim founded some years ago, and that's Beckett and grading. Now I'll take this off the screen, so we're back, but the deal just does not include Southern Hobby or Dragon Shield, those entities, but I believe everything else is. And as the graphic shows you, Collectors Universe now has, under its umbrella, obviously PSA, SGC, which happened in February of 24, and now Beckett. I'm gonna go to Dr. Jim. I guess with my famous two-pronged question, right? Did you sort of know what was going on a little bit ahead of time? I know you still have relationships there, and your thoughts now that this deal is at least at the moment done.
No, I actually didn't know ahead, and I want to congratulate my former teammates for we always had a culture of kind of non-disclosure of what was going on. So we had even as a medium-sized company, we really had a family attitude that what needs to stay on a need-to-know basis, and I wasn't in the need-to-know basis. So, and I'm very pleased that they were able to keep it under wraps until it was rolled out. In fact, I said I was there an hour before Nat showed up. I was in the building, and I left, and then a half hour later he came.
Let me ask you this, and I'll get to Victor too. But I guess my next question to you, Dr. Jim, this is your baby. I know it's not your baby anymore. You've moved on. But it still always will. I'm sure will have a place in your heart. Like I said, you have relationships still there with folks in the building. You just mentioned you were in. Like, what is your thoughts now with it going the way it's and to who? Like, what are your personal thoughts if you share those?
It's not a baby anymore. 41-year-olds are not babies. I started the company 41 years ago, and I sold it almost 21 years ago. So on the other hand, I'm the founder, and I put my stamp on it, and there's still some semblance of that, but they've moved on. They've had other owners, and I think this ownership change has the potential to be really excellent for the hobby and excellent for my teammates and the brand and all that. I'm a rose-colored glasses guy. I don't want to be ridiculously optimistic, but I'm optimistic.
Victor, obviously you own graded cards, you buy graded cards, you have your your favorites, your opinions of the grading companies. When you heard this, what were your thoughts?
My thoughts was it's been one heck of a couple of months here with the hobby. It's just caught me by surprise. It really did. And I just really solidified my feelings that things are shifting. The industry muscle is shifting. The hobby is shifting. The way people are collecting is shifting. There's just a lot of pieces that are moving right now. And I'm hoping by 2026, things will fall into place and we can get back into the swing of things. But right now, There's a lot of power play moves going on, and it's a fun time to be involved in the hobby. It's an amazing time to be a content creator. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was shocked. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Jim.
But I don't really want to be the content.
I hear you. Me either. Oh, yeah.
I was shocked when it came across my phone. And this story, this story made ESPN. I believe it made Fox News. This story went outside your normal hobby facets, right? This is made business news, and the whole 9 yards. So this is big news. We're going to get into the legalities here. There's been a letter drawn up by a congressman from my state of New York, Patrick Ryan, to the head of the FTC. We're definitely going to get into that. Some comments in the chat room, Dr. Jim. I don't know if you saw them, but to talk about you sat down with Nat Turner, the CEO of Collectors Universe. Can you? I know you did a show about it. I'm sure a lot of people heard that, but not everybody may have heard that episode. Just kind of share, what you will with that meeting with Nat. I'm sure that wasn't the first time you spoke to him. So just kind of, your thoughts and talking to him after this news broke.
It was a classy move. He texted me after the transaction and said, "Can we get together?" And I said, I didn't say I'm at your service as much as I just said, "Hey, I'm happy to meet with you. I'd like to know more, and I'd like to be of service." And again, classy guy. He came over to my place. Of course, then he got to see some of my collection and stuff like that. So we're on the same page about a lot of things. We're both hardcore, serious collectors. And of the people I've had in my card vault, my card room, he had about no one has had a sharper eye for the newer stuff than he had. He immediately in every panel could go to the card that was the more unusual, very difficult variation or mainly of the newer stuff. They like the older stuff too. So again, that just makes me feel good. I just think the people in the hobby that mess things up sometimes are the ones that don't really understand collectors. And Collectors, the company, is run by a collector as the CEO. And then subsequently, I've had a further conversation with Nat and his key leaders. And again, I think that went well. But again, it's I won't say talk's cheap because they paid a lot of money to have the talk, and they don't have any obligation to talk to me, and yet they did, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to have a voice, but as I said, I don't want to have a daily voice, but I want to have a voice when something's going on, as I think I can be helpful in certain circumstances.
For those that don't know, some do, some don't. I'm a bulk subber for SGC, and was doing that, and still doing that. Was doing it when that acquisition went down, and what's happened since then. It's not a secret. It's now known that PSA or collectors have taken some of SGC's graders off their floor and made them PSA graders. Now they didn't take their top graders, is how it's been worded to me. Their head grading, their lead grader is still with SGC, but they did take some of their manpower. It's been worded in what I've read from the release that they're going to run as independently as two separate companies as they were before the acquisition. That was said with SGC, and then PSA has moved into some of their buildings and kind of shared offices. So I guess my question to both of you guys, how do we take all these, I don't want to say promises, but sort of, intentions when I don't think they've exactly followed it, the blueprint the first time. And here is, part two.
It's not part two. It's a completely different thing. And when the headline is wrong, if the headline is saying that PSA bought Beckett, or even collector, let's maybe rephrase that. I meant that PSA bought BGS. This is collectors buying Beckett, the brand and all that comes with it. It's way more, the price guides, the marketplace, the just the publishing, all these things. It's way more than just the grading. The grading is the most obvious thing. So that's one of the reasons why it's very different. And frankly, John, it might even be different because PSA may have learned from the feedback over the last couple of years so I don't think in no way do I think they're going to play it exactly the same way.
Victor, your thoughts on what we've seen in the SGC acquisition? Obviously, this just happened with Beckett, so nothing has changed.
Yeah, I see a lot of like that PSA shut down SGC, but SGC is still open. John,
they are still open. Not to they are. I just saw my 10,000th card.
There you
through
go.
The folks of Middle Service, right? So
there you go. Yeah.
And the other thing I want to say real quick, sorry to interrupt you, Victor. The gem rate reports that we see, and Ryan does a great job with that, Ryan Szynski, those are the cards out the door, not the cards in the door. And so what I've been told is because they have less graders now, this is SGC I'm speaking of, that numbers went down. But the number of cards they're getting is very similar pre-acquisition. They're just pumping out less. Turnaround times have went up. So, a lot of people are putting the tombstone on them. The only thing you can put a tombstone on is maybe the 10 to 12 day turnaround time they were once at. Those days are probably, at least for now, done, and maybe forever. But go ahead.
So
I just
Jim,
wanted to say that.
I want to ask Jim a question just to get
Sure.
sentiment. I know you don't want to betray confidence and give too many details about your lunch with Nat, but I guess to shoot the question straight, during your time with Nat, did you feel that they are headed towards doing the same thing to BGS as they're doing to SGC? Did you get that feeling at all, or do you feel optimistic about what PSA plans on doing?
Absolutely not. I mean, absolutely not. I did not get that vibe. That wouldn't make any sense. He's a really smart guy, and so we had a wide-ranging conversation. I saw someone in the chat asking, "Did we talk about shill bidding?" Yes, we alluded to that, and I don't think we have no issues with that. So we had a candid conversation about that and some of the circumstances about that. So he's very up on things, and it's just this is again, John. This is a different acquisition. It's not a merger. They're much larger, but the Beckett, the brand, and the company has things that can be added in and not exploited, but be useful to PSA, to collectors. And again, Nat was very complimentary about the legacy aspect. And again, I don't want it to just be a past brand. I think he's excited about bringing it into the future. And like I said, I had a subsequent meeting with his key lieutenants, and they're seeing the same thing. They're not looking at how to wind this thing down. They're looking how to extract value and multiply their investment and make investment into it, which is one of the issues I brought up. I had an idea. I said, I just want to bring this up. I think this could be a big winner for you if you do it this way. Just hear me out. And they said, we like what we're hearing, but we will huddle up and we'll get back with you. So very, very positive.
Awesome.
The meeting, Nat reached out to you. What do you think the motivation was there? like you weren't going to talk him out of obviously the acquisition, but what what did he ask of you, or what do you think that was about, or if you
John,
know?
I think the train had left the station. If he had not, I mean, I've done. I said in my podcast, I've met probably with 10 groups over the last 10 years or so, mostly by Zoom or phone. I've met a couple of them at huge card shows, and a few of them have come to Dallas to meet with me about buying my company, the company that I no longer control or own, but they still wanted to get my opinion and get my voice and all that stuff. I'm very guarded when those people do that because, again, I don't want to betray any confidences or disclose anything out of school. I would have had the same tone with Nat if the deal had not been consummated, but the deal is done. And so now the Beckett brand is under, so I have no reason to withhold any strategic thoughts I have that are good for the brand. And
Now, will you? I mean,
and I haven't.
were you again? You don't have to answer any of this stuff. I'm going to ask it nonetheless. But like, were you asked maybe to be involved in the future Beckett now under new control?
I am involved. It has my name on it. Okay. Whether, and I have a podcast, so I am involved, whether they want to listen to me or not. It's not about paying me, and it's probably not even about listening to me. It's really about listening to the people. But I'm going to have a podcast platform, and I'm going to share, the way I see the world, and I hope they'll pay attention. I'm not always right, but I'm usually right. Most people are usually right.
All right, guys. Collectivist, not Collectors Universe, Collectivist Holdings bought control of Beckett less than a year ago. What do we think about selling not even a calendar year after purchasing this company itself? Again, nothing's typical, but traditionally that's kind of fast to buy a company and in a sense flip it. Use a card term, right? Victor, start with you. Does that, how does that strike you?
I'm sorry, John, repeat the question again. I'm a little.
So Collectivist Holdings, which is who owned Beckett's and sold to Collectors Universe, similar names, two different entities. They bought Beckett themselves less than 12 months ago, and now in turn have sold it to Collectors Universe. It's typically not what you see. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen ever, but usually a company will hold on to another company longer than less than a year.
Yeah.
Does it make you feel any certain way? And then I'll ask Dr. Jim the same thing. Well, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, it's pretty quick to me, but I'm not that savvy on business side of things, so I'll defer to Jim on this one.
The question is incorrect. That isn't what happened, John. Collectivists did not acquire the company. This was a kind of a refinance. It wasn't. It may have been new lenders, but it wasn't necessarily new ownership. And there may have been some change, but it wasn't that they were sold to Collectivists. Collectivists became the name of the entity instead of the older entity that had litigation and baggage and lending relationships that needed to be refreshed. So that
okay.
so in that sense, Collectivists was probably never interested in being the long-term owner. So, but that was an interim step to clean up the company's balance sheet and all that stuff in order that there could be a sale or a merger or something else. But the company, it really cleaned up and it allowed them to move forward. And that's why the last year was better than the year before. It's because of the structure of Collectivists.
But they were the ones that would have to give the thumbs up to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, the sale, it wouldn't have happened without them. I mean, that represents all the ownership. That was the
Yeah.
ownership entity.
But the timing of it, less than a year after they became the controlling identity, how does that?
It was a lot of the same people. And in the private equity world, if you can get in and out in less than 3 to 5 years and still are successfully having a successful exit, which I think this was for them, then that's all the more credit to them. They're not they weren't. I don't think they were that eager to. They weren't taking the first bid. They had a number in mind and they had a strategic fit in mind. And I think Nat and his team came along at the right time and said, "How about this?"
We seen when SGC got acquired. We seen Peter Steinberg, who I know very well, step down. I believe like 4 or 5 months. I could be off a few months either way. After the acquisition, and Kevin Isaacson, Dr. Jim, what do you think happens here, if anything?
Candidly, he is very happy. I think he got a bonus for effectuating this transaction, and he is now back to what he really enjoyed, which was running Southern Hobby and Dragon Shield. He loves the international aspect. He was a remote CEO anyway. He's very familiar with the brands that were retained, and I think this is great news for him and his family. And he's a friend, but I think the board of Collectivists, which again, when Collectivist was in charge, there was a reformation of the board, and so, but Kevin had their confidence, and he pulled it off, and so I think he's very happy to be running Southern Collectibles. He really whenever I talked to him, he really got a kick out of that. That was doing well, and they had weathered the storm of the adjustment in the way the hobby did business vis-a-vis distributors. And Dragon Shield was an interesting play in its own right.
Orlando's asking, will the purchase price ever be disclosed? It wasn't in any of the press releases. I would venture a guess it may come out eventually, but I don't think they're going to advertise it.
Hey, Jim, I was wondering, for the sake of clarity, I know Beckett had a lot of different branches or departments. Can you help us clarify what exactly did collectors purchase from Beckett, and what's been left behind and what's been picked up?
Well, the main things there were again before Collectivists, there were some disjointed Beckett kind of entities. And the criticism was that there was some, not misappropriation necessarily, but the profits from one were used to prop up the deficit of another. And so when Collectivist was restructured, I think everybody, all these entities were playing with a level playing field. But Southern Hobby always had its own P&L. And Dragon Shield always had its own P&L, and they are separate. The other things that were under, like the OPG and the BAS and the marketplace and all those things, they all have their own accounting, I'm sure, but it's all under the umbrella of Beckett Collectibles or Media or whatever they want to call it. And it'll be up to Nat and his team to sort that out and say, do we want to re-energize the marketplace, or do we want to sell it, or discontinue it in some way? But it's got great potential, and I hope they'll at least initially give it a chance to really make it fully blossom. At one point, it was a strong contributor.
All right, guys, let's kind of segue into the next shoe that dropped. I'll put the first page of the letter on the screen here. I won't leave it up here too long. This letter was drafted by Congressman Patrick Ryan of New York State, where I reside, to the FTC chairman, whose name is, I wrote it down here, Andrew Ferguson, also of New York. I'll give you it's 3 pages. He's urging the FTC to open an antitrust investigation into collectors' holdings. He says that PSA, who already owned 72% of the market share, then added 8% with SGC and now 3% of Beckett. These are his numbers. Now has 83% of the market share of the big grading. He said that he pointed to that it violates Section 7 of the Clayton Act and Section 5 of the FTC Act. He points to what they did when they acquired SGC, what they said they were going to do, and then what they actually did. He said was misleading and bad for the hobby and collectors, and fears the same will occur here. And now says it's even more of a monopoly. I know PSA is going to say, listen, we already owned a heavy market share before this acquisition of Beckett's. So not a whole lot has changed. I'm going to bring Chris Harris has called in. Chris Harris, this is right up his alley. He used to work in this sector, and I'll let him kind of start off here. Go ahead, Chris.
Howdy,
Morning.
folks.
Morning.
It's me again. Yeah, so I want to start off with one point first. Being a monopoly is not necessarily illegal. Okay. I don't know if anybody's been following the Michael Jordan NASCAR antitrust trial that ended last week, but on day one, the trial judge said NASCAR is a monopoly. But it's what you do as a monopolist that may be illegal. Let me preface my comments by saying that Beckett, over the last 5 to 10 years, has become really a distressed asset. I think there's been a lot of bad decisions made, bad management, bad luck, such as losing a lot of your senior graders to a startup with CGC. A lot of decisions that they could have made but didn't, and products that they could have made but didn't. I see a lot of these kids with their comp apps at shows now. And I asked myself, why didn't Beckett make a comp app and tie it to their online price guide? Why not? But Beckett, I'm happy that Collectors, which is a company that seems to know what they're doing, that respects the brand name of Beckett, because for a lot of folks and him, the Beckett brand means something.
Other way.
Yeah, the guy whose name is still on the marquee. The brand still means something to a lot of folks. Means something to me. The last time I was on this podcast, I went on a 5 to 10 minute long diatribe. I don't know if any of you heard it, about their HR department and basically stonewalling me. So people care about this brand and want it to succeed. And I believe that Collectors would be a great place for the Beckett brand and to shepherd that brand into the future. But there are issues in terms of antitrust. The fact that one company, which already has by itself about 70 to 75% market share, in grading, bought the number 3 grader last year and seemingly wound it down from 10 to 12% market share to about 2, and now is buying the number 4 grader BGS with a combined market share of 80%. Yeah, that's going to bring up some red flags in the antitrust world. I'm happy that this congressman is bringing some attention to this. I think that this is the kind of industry that isn't quite big enough to pay it for the FTC or the Department of Justice to pay attention to. But if you have collectors who are raising a stink over this, and now a congressman raising a stink over this potential buyout, I think my old employer, the FTC, where I worked for 12 and a half years, they might take a look-see into this merger. And so there.
Well, let me ask you, Chris, you think they'll act on it, or you think this will just go on someone's desk and nothing will come of it?
That's the thing. Is this industry, is it even worth the FTC's time when there are larger fish to fry? But I think someone at the FTC will take a look at this, because true story here, I think my employment at the FTC has elapsed long enough that I can tell this. One of the last cases that I worked on was a merger of 2 chains of pet crematoriums. First of all, who knew that these things existed? I don't own a pet. Second of all, who knew that there were nationwide chains of pet crematoriums? At the end, the 2 parties decided not to merge. But I think if the FTC will look at an industry like pet disposal, for lack of a better word, they'll look at card grading. And I think some of the remedies that might be negotiated out of a settlement might be forcing collectors to spin off either BGS and or SGC, or agree to buy Beckett from collectivists, but not buy BGS.
Victor, when you read this letter, what were your thoughts?
I thought it was a nothing burger. I thought it was. I thought we had better things to do with the U.S. government, but I don't know. The pessimistic inside of me says that voting is 10 months away, and what better way to gain some votes than to go against the big elephant in the room? You know, I don't know. I think there's nothing here, but I'm not. I respect Chris Harris's professional opinion working in that industry and field, and I know, Chris, you said that you think that FTC might take a look at this, and I'd love to ask you what do you think will become of this?
Well, let's take a look at what collectors / PSA has done. I mean, like I said at the beginning, it's not necessarily illegal to be a monopoly. Right. It's what you do with that power. Using monopoly power to go after your competitors is illegal, such as buying one for the purposes of either shutting it down or winding it down. That's illegal under Section 7 of the Clayton Act. That seems to be, to me, what they did to SGC. They bought it seemingly to wind it down. The other thing that you can't do with monopoly power is I don't want to use this word, but kind of screw over consumers using your monopoly power. Things like increasing prices constantly, cutting back on services, or, nickel diming people with fees such as, well, we've decided your card is now worth $50,000. If you want your card back, you're going to have to pay us an upcharge. That kind of thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, PSA does some things that are already kind of.
But we do
sus.
have, Chris. We still have CGC. We still have Arena Club. We still have KSA, and a litany of other grading companies. Can this really be an accusation? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you don't have to have 100% of an industry to have monopoly power. Okay. CGC is a strong second, and they have about 15 to 18% market share, and who knows? Maybe they grow to 30 to 35%. I don't know. Tag is around 1 to 2%. You have a bunch of other graders that are in the under 1%. But when you have one company that has that much power over an industry because they have this much market share, yes, that is problematic and we're seeing it. You're seeing it with upcharges, with constantly pushing back turnaround times, increasing the price of grading itself. We consumers are already being victimized by PSA's practices.
Okay. All right.
Dr. Jim, your thoughts when you saw this congressman's basically petition to the FTC chair about starting an investigation?
I thought it was a spoof. P. Ryan.
I know. What are
the chances?
What are the chances?
Being from New York, I already know of Patrick Ryan, the congressman, and so when I saw that he had initiated the letter and would involving the deal with Beckett, I just thought it was just the irony was it didn't get lost on me. But in all seriousness, like you've operated businesses for a lot. You think this goes anywhere, or you think this is semantics?
It goes straight to a desk.
And that's it.
Well, it's actually, I don't think that hard to get, if you're an influential constituent, to get a congressman to write a letter. In fact, you can draft the letter for him and say, could you push this up the chain? And the congressperson is wise to say, yes, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I will push it up the channels. And so it is going to get pushed up the channels, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Again, that was part of my conversation with Nat, is that, the monopoly thing. And again, Chris is spot on in terms of there are monopolies and illegal behaviors for companies that have monopoly type power. And so, but again, I like I said, my whole conversation about with him and his lieutenants both was moving forward and improving the hobby, bringing some additional alternatives, strengthening the Beckett brand. And so that's, and not raising prices because you can. In fact, if you weren't a monopoly at 75%, how are you all of a sudden a dangerous monopoly at 78%? There are alternatives. And frankly, there were alternatives if the hobby or other collectors is not the 600-pound gorilla in the room. They're a distant third to eBay and Fanatics, each of whom could have bought the Beckett brands. So they didn't. And so anyway, my conversation with Nat, he's very aware of the monopoly situation, and I think he's not the least bit concerned about that, because he's going to navigate in a way that hopefully a year from now, that's not even that's a distant memory of, gee, I'm glad they didn't do that. And I agree with you, John. I'm disappointed in the way SGC has declined.
Yeah.
And if that happens to BGS, then I was wrong. And then at that point, yes, there could be some that letter could get pushed up farther. But at this point, I'm taking Nat at his word that he wants to build back the Beckett brand. And frankly, as Chris said, if Nat was called into Congress, one remedy would be to sell SGC. I think he'd be more inclined to sell SGC, that they're very aware of its skill for sure, but it's way more limited than the potential that he has with the Beckett brand of bringing that out. And so if he's presented with a Solomon's choice, I think I see him very excited about the Beckett acquisition.
I could be wrong, but and maybe Dr. Jim can correct me on this, but hasn't SGC already been sold multiple times? And wasn't it founded by the same company that later would go on to found CGC?
We thought it back. We're going back 25 years ago.
Yeah, I'm going back to like the 90s.
Well, no, but in the early 2000s, we had conversations with SGC when they were in the previous ownership with Steve Eichenbaum, who is the CEO of CGC, and a very sharp guy. We had conversations about either merging our grading or frankly us acquiring them, because they were very, very much vintage, and we were having difficulty putting a dent in PSA. And this was in the early 2000s. I actually flew up there with Mark Harwell. We had extended conversations. It didn't go very far because they wanted to kind of do a complicated rev share. And we just said, well, it has to be that they get so much of this, and it became too complicated. And I thought, we just need to either acquire you or not, and it fell apart. After that, Steve Eichenbaum, I think, allowed like a management buyout of the SGC graders. It was either an ESOP or something like that, which I thought, that's cool. That's cool, because they had some really sharp, fully invested graders. And so the ownership of SGC at that point, which was a couple of years later, still early mid 2000s, became the guys that had the big stake in it. And I thought, that's great. And that was what was bought by PSA. And the CGC didn't even do cards at that time. I mean, they were NGC, and they had a huge coin business, and they were, competitors with PSA in that. They had other investors in that company that I knew. And so but then they started doing the non-sport, and then they made the big splash, as you said, when they brought in a couple of our top graders, which I don't think would have happened if I'd have been there. But I can't say that for sure, other than we had a tight team.
Yeah, and the owner of SGC was Dave Foreman, and then PSA Collectors Universe acquired them, and Dave rode off into the sunset. I've been told there were some promises made. What those were and whether they were honored, I don't know. So I'm not even gonna. I'll just mention that.
But wait a minute. It's either promises or it's contractual. I will tell you that if there were contractual agreements, then Collectors is not going to breach those. Okay. Now, if there were side promises, anytime you do a big deal, the verbal things don't count. Now, I'm not saying he went back on his word, but they're subject to interpretation. It needs to be in the contract, completely spelled out. and I would bet that they fully abided by the terms of the agreement. And I don't. If you're saying Dave Foreman is unhappy now, I'm sad.
Well, I don't know. I don't
He ought to
know
be
that.
happy.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, guys. Let's get away from sort of the politics of it, if you will. If I said to, and this is for everybody and the chat room too, if I said, can the acquisition where PSA, Beckett, and SGC are under the same umbrella, could this actually help the entity that's not the biggest entity that's not, which is CGC? Could they actually can they benefit from this for people who are maybe upset about this, don't like Collectors Universe and what it entails, and just say, you know what, I'm going with the only independent, so to big grading company now? Do you think this could, I don't want to say backfire, maybe that's too strong of a word, but do you think CGC might even benefit more than people realize from a move like this? And whoever wants to
that
jump in.
shuts down the monopoly thing, because of that. That is a very real possibility. And nobody's mentioned that CGC has common ownership with Fanatics. They are not underfunded. They're not a minor player. They're a bigger player, and they could benefit from that. And that's why this monopoly inquiry, I think, is not going to go anywhere. Now, if it plays out, well, I just don't. This is a great opportunity for CGC, and they've already changed their messaging in a clever way to say that they're the company that's about the collectors. They're using the collectors word against PSA, that they're the choice for the collectors. So they're looking forward to competing with this combined PSA entity with these other grading companies that Collectors owns, but are going to be run somewhat, mostly independently.
So if that's the case, why hasn't CGC broken out already?
They
seem to be stuck at like 15 to 18% market share. Why haven't they gone up to like 25, 30 now if people are just sick and tired of subbing their cards to
they're
PSA
sick and
and
tired of getting more money for their PSA grades? They're paying more, but they're getting more. If that formula didn't work anymore, I think CGC is a huge success story. Okay. And they're just doing great. BGS would love to be at 15 to 18%. And we used to be at a lot more than
used to be. And then they took all your
saying. And so CGC is doing great. They're going to keep doing what they're doing, and they're going to present themselves as the underdog, and that's great. But in the meantime, if BGS is energized, if PSA can, I believe, John, I'm in your corner, can re-strategize with respect to SGC to give them stability and an identity that's I think broader than a boutique. Boutique sounds pejorative. It's really not, but it's come to be pejorative. But they were the grader of choice for pre-war cards.
Victor, what are your thoughts with like CGC? Do you think they could actually use this and say, hey, we're not under this umbrella. We call our own shots. We're the people's, whatever they want to word, right? We're the people's grader. Can they benefit? Can they use this for the benefit of their company?
I think big shout out to them for releasing that press release and kind of saying, hey, our doors are open and we are ready. So that was a great move on their part on the PR side of things. I think we are going to see a tick up. I know, Chris asked, well, why aren't they at 20% or 25%? I think in the next few months, they probably will reach those numbers. They have a lot of momentum. There's a lot of positivity towards CGC and the quality of their slabs. And so they got a lot of good, positive momentum. Now, I think that's going to be, I don't think it's going to be permanent, only because of as I mentioned earlier, the things are shifting, power plays are shifting. But once the dust settles, it's all going to come down to, in my opinion anyways, secondary market values. And that's where CGC cannot compete, not even a little bit. And so I think in that case, they will plateau again, but there is going to be an uptick, I think.
You know, it's people mentioned, a couple people mentioned in the comments, you know, I don't even grade my cards, so I don't really,
Yeah.
you know, I don't really.
Me neither.
And hey, listen, that's true. I know collectors who don't. They just collect raw card. That's awesome. When grading first hit,
ODB back in the day.
yeah,
Oh,
when
baby,
grading
I
first
like
hit, I
it.
wasn't a fan myself, so I get that. You know what do you know, Victor? Does it change how you buy a card or grade a card? Will this change your approach?
Not at all. You asked me a bad question, but I'm pro PSA. My PC is PSA, and it's going to continue to stay PSA. So it doesn't affect or change my opinion of anything, really.
Here's a question for Dr. Jim. We see all the cards behind you. They're obviously Beckett's. Will this change? Obviously, with Beckett now under the collector's universe umbrella, does that change, you know, your approach? I know you're not necessarily adding a ton of cards, as you stated before, but does your opinion move at all, Dr. Jim?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that. I got 3 responses. Number 1, I got my very first PSA card from Nat Turner as a gift. That's how classy he was. It's totally messed up my display because I have all BGS. I didn't have the guts to tell him that, you know what, I'm going to get that reslabbed. I don't think I will. I'm gonna hold that over his head. I'm being somewhat facetious. There was another comment here a few minutes ago about why didn't I, when I sold the company, why didn't I just keep 10% or something and have a board seat so I'd still have a voice? I actually, in the 11th hour of my original transaction, I raised that issue. In fact, it was 20%, and they said that's a deal breaker. We're either buying all of it or none of it, and I was ready to sell. But that would have been my preference. I agree, and that would have changed history probably in some sense. And then lastly, I would not be optimistic about this. I think it's good for Beckett, the brand, and I think it's good for the hobby. Because if it's good for Beckett, I think it will be good for the hobby. So I think it'll be it'll be financially rewarding for PSA, for collectors, but also for the hobby. If I didn't think that, I actually wouldn't be on this program, and I wouldn't have interviewed. I wouldn't have gone any further with Nat. I'd say, hey, you're on your own. I think it could be really good for the hobby. It's going to bring order and structure and resurrect a brand that has been tarnished and needs some polishing, needs some reconstructive surgery, but has great
someone who cares.
Exactly. I care, but I am not going to get in the seat, but I don't mind whispering to the person in the seat.
What about serving on an advisory board or board of directors if there is one?
I am already a one-man advisory board that nobody's listening to. So no, that's not true. Even the previous regimes, they listened, but some of the listening was after the fact. And that's what I've learned, is that when they rolled out their grade change, you know, of the 9.5 thing and how to do that, they messed it up so bad. Then they wanted to talk to me after they messed it up. Why did it get messed up? I said, I could have told you. Why didn't you talk to me before? And so I've told Nat, I will not be holding my tongue. If I see something, I'm going to say it in advance. And I may be somewhat presumptuous, but I think like I am the boss, but I am not. I'm no longer the boss, but I have that in my DNA. No one cares more about the brand and the hobby than I do. There could be a tie. I think Rich cares a lot too, and you guys do. but nobody cares more. And so and what I've learned in the last 6 weeks in this hobby, people were not gentle with me about putting words in my mouth. And so I'm not going to be mean-spirited about it, but I'm not going to hold back to say what needs to be said to Nat or anybody else. And so far, he's listening very intently.
We're coming down the home stretch here, guys. You know, and this is in the hobby we like to speculate. Most of us do it, myself included, right? What do we think happens now with PSA, Beckett, and SGC basically being all under the same umbrella? What do we think happens, at least with those three brands? In other words, something along the line. We're doing this show a year to the day from now, December 20th, 2026. Do all three of these exist? Obviously, PSA is going to exist, but is SGC and Beckett still around? Is one gone and one still here? What do we think happens with this shoe dropping?
Guys, I think it's in SGC's best interest to stay where they are. This may be the low point right now. I'm hoping there's too much installed base and collector confidence in the tuxedo and in the SGC brand that it would. I think, and I'm hoping that they will. And if they ask my advice on that, I'll give that too. I'm not down on SGC. I think it's another diamond in the rough, that now has a clear identity as maybe, well, for non-registry stuff, it's the grader of choice for old cards.
Yep.
It doesn't hurt
Rich.
that.
I just want to say happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Rich.
Thanks, boss. And I've been putting in the chat, but as I pointed out, and I was thinking about this as Jim was talking, there are so many things, and I'm obviously wasn't even a fly in the wall of that conversation, but I pointed out several things that I think PSA can utilize Beckett, the whole world of Beckett for, to improve their product. And it doesn't cost them anything more since they've already bought the company. They can, Card Ladder is basically the OPG. Combine that with the OPG, you have something you can really sell for good money if you're PSA. I understand people don't want to spend the money. They have two really good databases. Combine the databases. Beckett has certain things. They have graders notes at PSA. Beckett has subgrades. And there was something else too. Those are at least four things Nat and his team can use from Beckett that they didn't have previously at PSA, or if they did, it was under wraps where Beckett was open. Now I wish they would bring back the convention calendar. I'd like to list my show again, but still
on there, you know that.
Yeah, that would be one thing I'd like, but
no, it is still on the website. You just have
but it's really hard to use nowadays.
That
and the forums are not good anymore. But those are minor things. But I'm just, in terms of just on a purely business level, and I pointed this out in the chat, PSA did due diligence. They do their discovery. They would not have purchased this at Beckett if they weren't comfortable doing so. And
Rich, all those things were discussed with Nat when we had our private conversation as well as the broader conversation.
Yeah.
There were one or two things where he said, looked me right in the eye and said, these things are damaged. Are they damaged beyond repair, or is there a way to bring that back? And in one case, I said, this thing is probably not going to make it. Don't throw good money after bad. And another one, I said, wait a year, we'll wait 6 months at least to see how it goes. And then you'll be able to make your own assessment. But that also could be torpedoed. Okay. But all those other things and the major things he was saying, we're so looking forward to rolling up our sleeves.
Nice.
So in other words, my 30,000 foot view is pretty much similar to yours.
Exactly.
Okay.
And maybe everyone wants a universal registry, right? A universal grading registry. Now with these three powers, if you will, maybe we'll get the closest we ever. If someone's going to put in that work, we'll get the closest to a universal registry with a PSA, Beckett, and SGC registry. I'd love to see that. I know it's not flicking a switch and it happens. It's got to be work done, but I think people would love to see that, myself included.
I told Nat I have a plan for how to do that. And when he's ready, which is not day one and it's not in 2025, but in 2026, I want that to happen. It's good for the hobby. And I know a way to do it that would be that could be accepted in a way that there'd be a little bit of grumbling, but it's the best that it could be. So he said, "Sure, let's talk about that next year."
Well, next year's less than 2 weeks away.
Thank you, Rich. Yeah, I know. But, he did. He just bought the company on Monday. So
okay, well then I'm teasing. He could have been on Tuesday.
I don't want to overwhelm him, but he's coming in there. You pointed out there's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
But if he starts dealing with those moving parts, and if they have strong, if there's a Beckett influence in there, and if there's something that, these are things I thought about. I proposed to BGS to do a universal pop report. And they couldn't.
I actually remember that.
I know, but they couldn't. It wouldn't have. Well, they just couldn't get it in gear. They had too many irons in the fire and putting out fires. But now, if Nat's in charge, I could say, "Hey, I'm going to adapt that proposal, and I'm going to say, here's the way I would do it." And he can say, "I like it," or "I don't like it," or "Tell me more." He'll say, "Tell me more," I'm sure.
All right. I want to go back to something that Rich said. He said that there were 4 things that collectors can take from Beckett. I want to add a 5th. The company used to be called Beckett Media, right? What happened to that? The media part. I know they still make the magazine, but go all out on journalism and news, because for some of us, Beckett still is a news source for a lot of us. Maybe you could do things with the magazine that are a little different, like make it almost like a lifestyle magazine instead of here's the news, here's the price guide. Make it something like, I don't know if you guys ever read like a magazine like Cigar Aficionado or Wine Spectator. Make it like a sports collectibles version of that.
Chris, we had a publication like that after
like
Jim sold. It was called Beckett Elite.
Okay.
It was a great
maybe
publication.
the time is
I
now
actually did the sports part. I actually did the card part of it.
Okay. Another thing. What happened to the Fat Packs podcast? That was great.
Eric's at Panini.
I know Eric moved on, but what?
And Paul's got his own card.
Paul's got his own sort of Mahachi. Chris,
somebody do a podcast there.
Chris, you are correct. There are certain things. I forgot those things. Those are great. But Beckett will have to hire an online journalist because Ryan Cracknell is now working for Fanatics. So Ryan was great, but Ryan's at Fanatics. So
I could be Mr. This comment from Stukes. I'm already trying to be Mr. November.
Collector of the month. God.
Thanks, Stukes.
But anyway.
Well, let me ask you this. Dr. Jim and anyone else, like, do the magazines still exist? Do we think that will continue to exist with this acquisition?
It's not my call, but I think the magazines, the books will continue to evolve, and they may there may be digital components, and there may be, we're in a different world now. This is the 21st century, well into the 21st century, and that's the digital century. So print will be less, but I'd hate to see print go completely away, but I'm sure it'll be reduced. But again, what I was impressed with Nat, just to get back, he's the new owner and the guy in the seat. He is focusing on the bigger things. This is not a bigger thing. The bigger thing is integrating BGS in and making sure that they do that right. And then there's some other things. And I told him, if that's job one, I'm here to bounce ideas off. But and when you go to the next thing, I'll weigh in if you want me to, or maybe even if you don't want me to. But that's down the line, Chris. But I want to apologize on behalf of my name. I wasn't in charge of treating you shabbily, and you're an outstanding candidate with multi-talents. I'm not denying that, but I don't know if they just couldn't fit you into one of the job descriptions that they had, which we never did that back when Rich and I were there. We were looking for the best contributor available, and then we'd find a place to put them. So I'm sorry about that. So I'd say keep throwing things out there, and they may say, "Hey, this Chris guy's got some good ideas. If he can make it happen, let's bring him in, or be remote." Some of that stuff you're talking about is remote. So keep up the good ideas and keep on caring.
They thanked me for a job interview that never happened.
I heard that. That's the ultimate insult.
I think that's a microcosm for the current state of your namesake company.
Thanks, Chris.
And hopefully Nat Turner will fix that.
Yeah. All right, guys, we went a little overtime. That's okay. This is obviously a huge topic. We'll kind of go around. Victor, what do you got coming up content-wise, or anything you want to share?
Plugging away. Saturday's usually my content creation day, so not much going on with that. Business as usual. And I'm excited for what drops next in the industry. A lot of good stuff going on.
Dr. Jim, you're doing your show, obviously.
Well, I'm evolving my show a little bit. I mean, I realize now that controversy is not going to kill me. I have the rose-colored glasses, but I'm going to try to keep. I'm actually going to do. Rich and I got some episodes in mind that are pretty mainstream, but I'm going to tackle a couple of controversial topics, but I'm not going to do it with a guest. I'm going to do it by myself.
So you're doing the Hobby Quick Hits version.
No, not exactly, because they will be hits, but they won't be hitting on people as much as this is an issue in the hobby, a topic that needs to be discussed, and to try to discuss it rationally. And then I'll get feedback from people. So that's on the horizon next year, probably January.
Rich?
Well, I look forward to the next time we tape podcasts with the good doctor. We did like 2.5 hours a couple weeks ago, and there's still some episodes in the can. We'll probably do one in January. As for me, I don't really have anything hobby planned till the end of the year, except the only thing I'll do is during the next couple of weeks, I'll just start thinking what's coming up in January. I do a little newsletter for the DFW area on sports cards because I want to know where I'm going. So I'll make sure I have January ready to roll. And other than that, probably the next show I'll go to will be the Dallas Card Show.
There you go. Chris, maybe the next time you're on the show, you'll be hired, whether that be at PSA or Beckett or SGC.
Or anyone at this point.
What about working for Congressman Patrick Ryan?
Well, I'm not a Democrat, so I'm not a Republican either. So,
hey, he represents a swing district. You can just work. I'm sure he'll take independents too.
Well, I do want to wrap up by saying that I genuinely hope that with Nat Turner, the Beckett brand is in good hands. I think we all can agree with that. With that said, I think it's really up to collectors to decide, either with their wallets or by petitioning the Federal Trade Commission, if they think it's okay to have one company owning 3 different graders with 80% market share. If they're fine with that, fine.
Yeah.
It's up to you. Vote with your money. Vote with your wallet.
Guys, we haven't
And
mentioned
keep rocking in the free world.
Go ahead, Doctor.
Nat is weaving a narrative toward going public. It's going to be a narrative filled with good stories. So this the SGC is a blip. They need to correct that, but they need to be seen as the real moving force in this hobby. And if they've resurrected or cleaned up Beckett, which does have brand recognition, when they go public, that adds to their positive story that they are more than just a grading company. They're the center of the hobby, and they will be public. I mean, he hasn't said that, but I mean, that's an obvious path for them. And so the narrative is being shaped right now of how when they do go public, it's going to be a positive story of success after success.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna see, right? There's stuff to come. This is just the beginning. There's going to be a middle, and then more things to come. I just did a show with Paul Lesko, the hobby lawyer, as he's known. Speaking of a grading case of a missing Honus Wagner, that was yesterday. And rarely do I do this, but it's a 4-part series. So the next 3 Fridays, Paul's going to break down some hobby litigation, some cases that pertain to the hobby. And Paul has a great way of making them easy to understand and get what's going on. And whether you like litigation or you don't, it does have a direct effect on the hobby, some of these decisions or what may happen. So that was yesterday. The next 3 Fridays, we're going to be tackling some of the cases going on in hobby litigation. Go ahead, Victor.
No, I just wanted to ask Jim real quick. I know he's a Dallas Mavericks fan. I know he watches the games. What's your take on old Cooper Flagg there, 18-year-old, scoring as many points as he's doing? Have you gotten a chance to see him play? And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going in the next game. He's figuring it out, guys. He is. Let's see. He'll be 20. He'll be 19 tomorrow. So he has figured it out. His growth from the beginning of the season, where he was kind of observing, staying in the corner, or being this failed, point forward experiment, which put the ball in his hands. But he's a sponge. He's soaking it up. He's respectful of his elders, but when it's his turn or when he needs to assert, he has asserted. So I'm very pleased. Now there are some other really good rookies in the crop. This is a strong crop, but he is the cream.
Okay. And I honestly don't think it's as much as a failed experiment when Jason Kidd made him the point forward. Yeah. I think he was trying to teach him more skills, right, understanding the Mavericks aren't going to be super competitive this year. And if you get those extra skills, just like Wembeyan can hit 3-pointers because he grew up doing things differently than just playing in the paint. So I think that was actually a brilliant move by a true Hall of Fame point guard to say, let's give you a little experience of being a point forward. Maybe it was a little too early in the season, but I thought it was a great move when I heard he did that.
Well, guys, first off, everyone in the chat, thank you as well. The show doesn't exist without you. Good comments, bad comments, right? We're all entitled to how we feel. This is America. Thank you, Dr. Jim. I'd like to take credit for the schedule, but it just happened to work out that way. And Chris, thank you for coming on and sharing some of your insight as someone who worked in that field to what might actually happen with a
I could have
condemnation.
gone to a card show this morning. That's how important this was. So.
Nice.
There you go. Well, we appreciate your dedication. Like Dr. Jim says, everyone on this panel cares. I believe everyone in the chat room cares, or the majority cares, and that's important, right? That's important for the future of this hobby we love, and as Dr. Jim says, the greatest hobby in the world. So I'm wishing everyone on the panel happy holidays, everyone out there, whether you're in the chat room right now or listening to this audio podcast after the fact and not live. We appreciate you just the same and just as well. Happy holidays as all. Hope you get or happy hobby days. I saw someone put in the chat. Hopefully, if you have some card items on your list, I hope they're in your stocking or under your tree or however it may be obtained. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John.